This is Charles Darwin. He is responsible for creating the first modern theory of evolution. But what is the theory of evolution? Evolution is the process by which organisms change over time as a result of changes in heritable physical and behavioral traits. Changes that allow an organism to better adapt to its environment will help it survive and have more offspring. Evolution by selection is one of the best sustained theories in the history of science, supported by evidence from a wide variety of scientific disciplines, including paleontology, geology, genetics, and developmental biology.
So what does all that even mean? This is Blob. Blob lived about 1.5 billion years ago. On the other hand, this is Bob. Bob is alive today. In fact, Blob is Bob's ancestor. How is that possible, you may ask? Well, evolution has the answers. In fact, we can prove how Blob is Bob's ancestors. If we check Bob's evolutionary tree, we can actually show how Blob and his descendants eventually evolved into Bob. Let's see how that works. Going back in time for a while, we can see Blob swimming with his species. Or at least, they were his species. You see, most members of his species are yellow, but he is blue. This is a result of a mutation Blob had when he was born. Little does Blob know, but this mutation is beneficial as it makes him harder to spot by prey, and thus will be passed down to Blob's descendants, making them better able to survive in this particular environment. This example demonstrates natural selection. Natural selection is a process whereby organisms better adapted to the environment tend to survive. If we go a bit further into the future, we can see Bob's descendants. Among them is the individual who seems to have picked up a rather important mutation. You see, most members of his species have primitive ways of distributing oxygen throughout their bodies, but he has developed a more advanced way of distributing oxygen throughout his body. This makes him a more desirable mating partner, and as a result, his genes will proliferate through future generations of this species, making them better able to survive in this particular environment. This example demonstrates sex selection. Sex selection is natural selection arising through preference by one sex of certain characteristics in individuals of the other sex. If we go even further into the future, we can see this other descendant of Blob, who through characteristics he inherited from previous generations is able to live on both land and water. In another ocean during the same time period, we have these other descendants of Blob, who, due to the fact that they migrated a while ago, have developed different characteristics than their cousins in other oceans. This is a great example of divergent evolution. Divergent evolution is the accumulation of differences that cause the formation of new species, usually a result of diffusion of the same species with different isolated environments, which blocks the gene flow among the distinct populations. Over here we can see an individual who is not a descendant of Blob, yet shares a lot of similar characteristics with Blob's descendants. This is because they both evolved in the same environment and thus have the same adaptations in order to thrive. This example demonstrates convergent evolution. In evolutionary biology, convergent evolution is the process whereby organisms not closely related independently evolve similarly. This is Bob. Bob is the product of a million mutations that make him the individual he is today. Bob is happy to know where he came from, and now you do too.